Welcome. The League of Women Voters of Cape Ann is pleased to bring you a debate with all 6 candidates for Mayor of Gloucester. I'm June Michaels, your moderator. The preliminary election to narrow the field to 2 candidates is Tuesday, September 14th, and the general election is Tuesday, November 2nd. The League is a nonpartisan political organization for women and men which encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government. We do not and never have endorsed individual candidates for public office. Our debates present all candidates directly to you, the voters, in a fair and equal format. We hope that over the course of this debate, you will learn more about what each candidate hopes to do for the city. I want to thank the Sawyer Free Library for providing this space and 1623 Studios for taping and broadcasting the debate over the next few weeks. Our first candidate, Francisco Scafani, has a degree in business administration from Western Connecticut State College. He's a grandson of Captain Jerome Frontiero and the son of Frank Scafani, one of the original desert rats who defended Tobruk in northern Africa. His interest in the city of Gloucester has led him to run for mayor several times in the last 40 years. Robert Russell has a degree in economics and was a high school teacher and prominent member of Safe Schools that promotes inclusion and reduces bullying. He's now a Cape Ann realtor and, as he told the GDT, is running for mayor to restore downtown and polish the city's crown jewels, such as Main Street, Stacy Boulevard, Gloucester Harbor, and Good Harbor Beach, by making smart tourism the new mantra of the island. We need to shine for our 400th birthday and reintroduce ourselves as a city that has moved forward but remains in love with our heritage and charm. Safatia Romeo Second became Gloucester's mayor in January 2015 after serving 7 terms on the city council. She was the community health care liaison for Addison Gilbert Hospital and has been a lifetime advocate for the fishing community, small businesses, veterans, and senior citizens, and a fabulous cook of legendary Italian food. Highlights of her term have been the creation of the Angel Program, the Massachusetts Fishermen's Partnership, which provides health insurance to the fishing industry, Gloucester Fresh, which promotes sustainable seafood, and BioGloucester, a new initiative to develop our life science economy. Gregory Verga has served 4 terms on the school committee, followed by 6 years on the city council, 4 representing West Gloucester and Magnolia, and 2 as a councillor at large. He has a degree in communications from Salem State and is a professional realtor, a bass guitarist, and the author of a children's book. He would prioritize making city government more transparent, collaborative, and efficient, conducted with respect and civility. John Harvey is a lifelong resident of Gloucester with 12 years of fishing experience and 20 years in marine construction, including dredging the Annisquam River. His top priority is improving Gloucester's infrastructure in the most sensible and cost-effective manner. As he told the GDT, we need a mayor who can work with all departments to anticipate the city's needs and solve its problems before they arise. We need a mayor who will audit all the departments and review contracts to ensure that our tax dollars are well spent. Brian J. Pollard graduated from Endicott College with a degree in business administration. His passion for real estate involved him in the development of 10 investment properties in downtown Gloucester, most of which were distressed and required considerable improvements, which he describes as a small part of gentrifying the downtown area for the betterment of the city. Over time, his passion became helping the community by working with Action Inc. and the Gloucester Housing Authority to provide adequate and affordable housing to Gloucester residents. In 2018, Action gave him the Community Partnership Award in recognition of his support. I will be asking questions prepared by the League of Women Voters. The first 2 candidates will each have 2 minutes to respond. The next 4 will have a minute each. Then I will open the issue up for some back and forth discussion. At the end of the debate, each candidate will have 1.5 to 2 minutes for a closing statement. Our timekeepers today are Nan Andrew and Mel Michaels, members of our local league. So, question 1. The first person to respond will be John Harvey, followed by Robert Russell. What would you have done differently during the COVID-19 pandemic regarding testing, masking, vaccination, and closure of schools and businesses. Mr. Harvey.
Honestly, the way that situation developed and as quickly as it developed, I don't fault the city in any way for how they handled the COVID response. I think they did a good job.
Well, you have a little more time. What would you do right now regarding the COVID?
I think for the most part, this is up to the governor and the state on this level, and I wouldn't go too far beyond what they're currently mandating. I think they've got the better access to the better science and the better people at the moment to make these decisions.
Very good. Mr. Russell?
First of all, I want to thank the League of Women Voters and 1623 Studios for giving the citizens an opportunity to hear the candidates. I'm Rob Russell, and I'm running for mayor of Gloucester to make us shine. The COVID-19 pandemic hit all aspects of Gloucester. I would have closed the beaches, number one, to residents only. That's Stageford Park, Wingersheek Beach, and Good Harbor, our crown jewels. We were inundated last year with non-residents filling our streets. Plum Cove, the quarries, Long Beach, the neighborhood in which I live, was inundated. We can do better. We needed to be protected during the pandemic. Other communities, such as Barnstable County, the beaches were closed only for residents. And I'll give you an example why that's so important. If you're at Plum Cove last summer and you caught the virus, had the beaches been closed, you might be able to call your friends and say, I contracted the virus. But in Gloucester, since the folks were from all over, we had our beach revenue was $2 million. We've never had more revenue. We never had more visitors. So we were not protected. And it's plain and simple. We can do better. This is your city hall, and we need a leader that will protect us at any time. Thank you.
And now Mr. Scafani, followed by Mr. Pollard, will have 1 minute to comment on what they would have done differently during the COVID pandemic.
I think I probably would have offered a bounty for anybody who wanted the vaccine. Probably, I don't know how much you'd put on it. And you'd see people coming out of the woodwork wanting to get it if they were getting paid for it. Right now, it's a vax a million. One person wins $1 million, and I mean, you could have paid everybody $1,000, and people would have been 100% vaccinated. And I think things just played out the way they were. You couldn't have rushed it or tried to stop it. And I mean, it took so long for those. Actually, it was actually kind of quick. Those vaccines being created in a laboratory, which that seems to be the thing that's going to save the human race. But I really think they should put a price on everybody's, decision to get vaccinated. That way, it encourages them to get vaccinated, instead of them just, guessing whether to get vaccinated.
Mr. Pollard?
Good morning. My name is Brian Pollard. I'm running for the mayor of the city of Gloucester. So one thing I think is extremely important is personal hygiene, and especially with this pandemic that we've recently experienced, I think one of the most important things is that we can focus on, cleanliness, cleaning our hands, social distancing, and obviously avoiding touching our face, nose, and our ears. I think that we need to focus on what we can do. My parents, my mother is 80, my dad is 81. I am fully vaccinated. That is my choice. And I think we should support anyone who would like to get vaccinated, and, support anyone and try to help anyone that would like to get vaccinated. But I believe that it is the choice of the Gloucester residents whether they would like to be vaccinated or not. Thank you.
Mr. Verga, and then Mayor Tacken.
Well, there's no sense in going back and trying to relitigate history. I mean, there were mistakes made, so going forward, we need to learn from the mistakes. This isn't a battle of fact and fiction. We have science that tells us masks work and the vaccine works. So we should be encouraging people to do both, especially now that the Delta variant is running wild. And I think what you might have been getting at in the second half of your question was, what will we do now? Yeah, the governor and the state are making recommendations to school, elementary and Department of Elementary Secondary Education. That's them calling now. They need to, we should follow the science, and we should be ahead of the curve. And I'm glad that the school committee was already looking to hold a public hearing before the state said that masks were required in school. It is a matter of choice, but it's also a matter of, as Mr. Spock said, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. So we need to require masks in school. It's that simple. Encourage all employees to get vaccinated. They work. You know, hundreds of millions of people have gotten them. I don't think we should be too concerned about ill effects. The ill effects of COVID are much worse.
And now, for the incumbent, looking back over the last year and a half, what would you have done differently?
Well, you know what? It's hard to say what you would do differently, but you can be proactive this year. Differently, you have to understand every day was a new crisis. Every day was a new status. Every day there was a new regulation. Every day there was different science. Every day. We did close the beaches for the whole month of June, and we found out that people were getting on, being brought off in taxis. You know, we tried to stop the bridge on walk-ons, and it's very difficult. So we took it what we could. We asked for help. We got environmental police. We got the partnership we did with the cities and other communities, what they were doing. And we also partnered with the government, and we got our park rangers and extra funding to help us. What we would do differently this year, I'm on the school committee, mask. We're all wearing the mask, and they have a step further. I have on the city side, I have custodials who environmental services who work in the school side, so it's kind of difficult. I voted for the mask. As far as mandating the vaccination, I have to talk to the Board of Health. We have a partnership with the Board of Health and my staff and unions.
Would anyone like to comment more on the COVID, or shall we go on to the next question? I think we can go on to the next question. The city has prepared a coastal climate change vulnerability assessment and adaptation plan to identify the most vulnerable areas and municipal infrastructure and how to protect them. What do you believe is the urgency of preparing for ocean rise and climate change based on what we've seen in the past few years? And what would your priorities for action be? The first speaker will be Brian Pollard, followed by Greg Verga. Mr. Pollard.
Thank you. Well, as mayor, you're in a leadership role, but this specific topic, I believe, is a team effort. So I think this is something that we need to focus on concentrating with the different department heads. You know, TJ Shimataro, the harbor master, would be, you know, the biggest liaison in, you know, supporting us to focus on protecting the you know, the issues we have with climate change, and also, you know, we have to work with the state as well, since, you know, the majority of the harborfront is in the DPA, and I think it's important that they, you know, support the city of Gloucester as well to continually focus on solutions for the issue. Thank you.
Mr. Verga.
Yeah, unfortunately, climate change over the decades has become such a political issue, you know, it's much like the vaccine and the virus. But whether you believe climate change is man-made or nature, look out the window and there it is. We're seeing it with the fires in California, the scorching temperatures in Oregon, the floods all over in Florida and other Gulf states. So it's real, it's here, we're vulnerable because we're right on the coast. Most of Roger Street, when the settlers got here, was waterfront. It's all filled land. So Mother Nature will reclaim what's hers. So, I mean, the Community Climate Coalition, they're out there doing their work. The city's got a resiliency plan in place. So we need to look at the real recommendations and institute what makes sense. I'm proud of my time on the city council when I supported the wind turbines and the LED lights. You know, those are just small measures, but they help reduce the carbon footprint, which helps offset what's spewed into our atmosphere. So it's real, I believe in it, and I'll do everything I can, work with all our partners, local, state, and federal, to make sure we're protected. I mean, a lot of our infrastructure is below sea level, the high school, the sewer treatment plant. We need to be prepared.
And now Mr. Russell, followed by Mayor Romeo II, will have a minute to speak. Mr. Russell?
Just yesterday, Ed Markey held an event in Boston highlighting that there were 22 events in 2021 that cost $95 billion. Gloucester must be prepared. And the first thing that we must be prepared is a sewer treatment plant. We are going to go after, under my leadership, the $1.5 billion coastal resiliency program. The money's there. We've got to get on board with it and do everything we can, since we're a coastal community, not just to get our fair share, but to go for more. Gloucester depends on it, our future does, and I'm going to get it for you.
Mayor Romeo II?
Excuse me. We are going after those fundings, and we're getting our fair share, and that's with the partnership, excuse me. I am on the MMA Resilience Mayor's Council. I'm on the Seaport Economic Council, appointed by the governor. The partnership starts, but you can't have a partnership unless you realize what's happening in your community. And we have the climate change, we have green energy. We are a 10-year green energy community, thanks to all. We also have people who advise me. We come in monthly. We are looking at the coastal resilience, and we're looking at the waterfront, which is a very important issue because we don't get our fair share when New Bedford owns 90% of their wharfs, and our wharfs are owned by private properties, so it's reversed. So, but we finally, after so many years, and good news for everyone, after 30 years, we've finally been relieved of the federal penalties, wages, and waivers, and we are working closely with EPA and DEP, and we have now 1/3 of, okay, stop. I will stop.
Mr. Harvey, followed by Mr. Scafani.
Thank you. On a municipal level, I think most of what our issue with climate change is going to be sea level rise. So certainly, we're going to need a new sewer treatment plant relatively soon when the EPA forces us to go from primary to secondary. It's got to be either rebuilt in a new location or it's going to be built higher up. The rest of it is down to, I really think, the building inspector's office, as far as new construction and repairs to current construction, as to the elevations they're built at, seawalls and remediation for that, of that nature.
Mr. Scafani?
I think as you study the topography of the earth, you'll see rivers going inland to dry lake beds. I would suggest building desaltation plants on the coast, running water mains into the desert, whichever desert, and then, of course, you remember rainforest is what's keeping this earth alive. Probably just trying to replant rainforests wherever those water mains are being, made, and then you could. It's pumping the ocean into the desert to make desert more inhabitable. That's where the water's got to go somewhere. It goes through the desaltation plant, down the water main, into the desert.
Would anyone like to speak again on the subject of dealing with, yes?
Thank you. I just want, there was a few candidates that had mentioned the sewage treatment plant, and I think it's important to understand that the city has just been awarded a $3 million grant because the sewage treatment plant is below sea level. To protect that property, there is going to be a wall that will be constructed around the entire facility to protect the property from up to a 100-year flood zone. So I think that's really important for the residents of Gloucester to know.
Can I?
Yes.
Well, thank you. I was going to mention that. Thank you. I'm glad you're paying
We're
attention.
a team effort.
Thank you. So, as he's related on that, we are going to need a second water treatment plant, and we're working on that, and it's gonna have to be at the same place. We have architects, engineers, we know what's undersea water, we know what's gonna happen, we know climate change is happening. We are doing that, and we're gonna protect that. We're also working on not just the parking lot, because we know that disaster in 2015, and that was awakening for everyone. For those who didn't believe, we now all believe, it's to protect the whole Gloucester High School, because that's right there, and we got grants to do that. As you know, the governor came, and we finally signed that climate bill so we can get that money, and we got part of it to do our dams, which haven't been looked at, okay, for over 100 years. Our water treatment pumping stations, 1/3 have been refurbished and redone, and now we have future money to do that. So we're ahead of the game. We've also, remember, don't forget, the CSO project, 30 years. Some of the communities haven't even started. We completed, and we actually told, when I took office in 2015, I went right to the State House, and I think Bruce was a little nervous, Senator Tarr, for those who don't know, and said, what is she doing? And Ann Margaret Ferranti, representative, was there, and I says, look, we're gonna go back and forth. We're gonna argue with the government, we're arguing with the federals, we're gonna do DEP, and you know what, can we work together? We need this, and we need to work together, and we are coastal. We're an island, no matter which way. And you know what? I don't worry just about Gloucester, because Rockport and Essex is right there. It goes. We're all each other's backyard. And we also supply them water. So we're working closely with those managers, too, the town managers. So, you know what? We're thinking of the future, because as today we can say, oh, look, it's beautiful. But we've seen climate change just this past summer. So we need to work together. And under my administration, we've done a fantastic job as far as securing grants, getting money that was never seen before that people didn't understand. Being on the resilience committee with MMIA is great, because I get what's coming down the pipeline. So since I know what's coming down the pipeline fast while working with other mayors, my future plan is to start off as hiring a part-time just person to do climate change, just to look at the grants, just to look at what we need to do, and then full-time, because that whole job has to be separate from any other department.
Would anyone like to comment on that? All right, we'll go on to the next question. I want to talk about other infrastructure needs or possible gaps in city services. The federal government has provided relief and stimulus funding for COVID-related costs, and state revenue is healthy right now, surprisingly, indicating more funding for schools and other municipal purposes. So, how would you prioritize the use of new funding over the next 4 years in infrastructure and in services? The first person to speak will be the mayor, Safaria Romeo-Thecen, followed by Brian Pollard.
Well, we got the CARES Act, and we have ARPA money. So you're asking what we're doing. I'm frugal when it comes to the city budget. We have maintained a budget every single year. When the COVID started, I asked every department, no increases. I asked the school, because we didn't know. And what was coming down the pipeline was saying, we didn't know about the CARES Act. We didn't know about ARPA. We had no idea. We didn't know it was going to be a whole year and a half and still continuing. Like I said, every day things changed. And so we kept asking what to do, and I asked everyone to hold off. Nobody got raises, nobody got things except certain departments. School, we're supposed to, their principals and administration were supposed to get their COLA, and I asked them to hold on. We need to make sure the schools are safe first as far as ventilation and everything else. We worked together because it was a crisis. We had the CARES Act, and now we found out, and thank God we are frugal, because the fact is that we got to bill FEMA on 100% reimbursement. So we're waiting to hear back from them. So we got $1.8 million in the CARES Act. And we sent it through FEMA, which we're waiting for the response on what we can and cannot do, because everything has guidelines. You can't just, oh, it's a free pocket, let's go shopping. And we have worked tremendously, all of our departments, to make sure. I would not do extra spending. I would not do, you know what, extra things. And you know what, we can't do it. I want to make sure that we have it. I don't want to take it out of the budget. We needed that, and we did that. And our budget every year, 1.9% to freehold. If the FEMA money comes back, I'll have over $700,000. Right now, the school asked for some more equipment, some more things that they need for each classroom to have like a purifier. Absolutely, and this is what it is, because now we know Now we can plan. There's no everyday crisis. Now we know, we have the expertise, we can do it and start spending. Believe me, $700,000 will be easy to spend by December. I'll talk about the ARPA another time. You told me to stop.
That's good. Mr. Pollard?
Yes, thank you. So, assuming that we do receive additional stimulus money, I want to circle back around to the sewage treatment plant because I think it is extremely important that we focus on this subject. So, the current sewage treatment plant is it's a primary facility. It's one of the last primary facilities in the entire state of Massachusetts. Most cities and towns in Massachusetts have at least a secondary treatment facility or a third treatment facility. The federal government is going to require that the City of Gloucester upgrades the current sewer treatment facility from a primary to a secondary facility. There's no time frame, but it's in the near future, maybe in the next 5 or 6 years. And the cost for the City of Gloucester to do that is going to cost us approximately $80 million. So I think it's extremely important. If I was mayor, I would institute a capital improvement plan to focus on that. Ideally, if you're saying we're gonna be awarded additional funds, I would like to use the majority of those funds to focus on this because as the residents know, we currently already have a significantly high water sewer rate as it is. There's another focus that I think we could use stimulus money on. The city, Harbor Cove in front of that cove in front of the Gloucester House. On each side of the Gloucester House, the city owns, they own slips for commercial fishermen. I would like to, if we can work with the state, maybe extend the dockage and the slips out even further to add additional commercial slips. I think it's extremely important because at this time, there's currently a waiting list at the State Fish Pier. And so if we can add more slips and opportunities for the commercial fishermen, that'd be great. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Mr. Verga, followed by Mr. Scafani.
Yeah, over the years, I remember being on the school committee during the Great Recession, and we got a lot of money from the federal government, and it went to one-time use. You can't use it for recurring costs, obviously. You're not going to put that money into salaries or things like that because it won't be there the next year. And so we have a whole pile of things we could be spending it on. Our sewer infrastructure started in the 90s. We expanded from the hospital to the Rockport line and then did out in West Gloucester a little bit. But the inner city is a lot of really old pipes. So we don't want to surprise what we did in the past with the wood and water pipes that were breaking. So I would like to see, as mayor, talk to the planning department and community development, give us a priority list of what needs to be done first. We've got old buildings, we've got old infrastructure underground. We need to be ready to attack what's the most vulnerable and what we can put the money to the best use of now. There's a lot of infrastructure money coming from the Biden administration, and we should be ready to pounce on that and plan accordingly to use it to the best use.
Mr. Scafani?
I think that we need more water towers. My water pressure's just getting less and less in my place, so that's what you need to boost water pressure, is you need water towers. I was by Good Harbor Beach the other day. It was high tide. I don't think there was even 200 feet of beach, so I probably would expand the beaches. And then the sewer plant, I think we should have a different type of sewer plant. To me, sewerage is a resource. You got all these people starving to death, billions of people around the world. It's because most of the earth is desert, and what it needs is some type of fertile soil. And so if you could somehow take all the sewage that was being created and ship it to the deserts, you'd have the foundation for a fertile soil. I always am amazed when I walk away from a maple tree. There's like 200 little maple trees under them. And I think that's what it's the beaches, expand the beaches, and more water towers, and a state-of-the-art sewer system that somehow you can.
Next, we'll hear from Mr. Russell and then Mr. Harvey.
The $1 trillion infrastructure money will be earmarked for our crown jewels. The boulevard needs a bathroom. Our roads need repair. We're a tourist community and we have to reclaim our identity. And if Beach Road cannot be passed safely, how can we call ourselves a tourist community? Our infrastructure is roads. We have a chance with our 400th celebration to reintroduce ourselves. That means people can safely go to Cressy Beach. They can safely go to Half Moon Beach. They can enjoy the boulevard. We have to say, come to grips, are we a tourist community? And if we are, Beach Road, the access to our beaches must shine. In downtown, the sidewalks should be safe. And that's what you're going to get under my leadership. There's $1 billion. We're going to go after it, and we're going to fix the roads.
Mr. Harvey?
My understanding of the ARPA funds is that we're in line for something in the neighborhood of about 23 million on that relief package, which isn't going to go super far. I mean, that's a quarter of the way through our sewer treatment plant, which is a needed thing. That's not an option. Between that and probably COVID protocol ventilation in the schools, I mean, we need better ventilation in some of our, especially in our older schools. I'd love to see better pavement. Everyone in town I talk to wants to see better roads, but these things are above that. They're more important. I'd love to see room for both, but that's what we have to work with.
Would anyone like to add some new other projects? Yes.
The lifeline of our community is from going from A to B. Again, we're going to be inviting local communities to come here and celebrate and get our tourism back. COVID has hit our tourism. I'm going to launch a 365 advertising campaign to welcome back to Gloucester. And that infrastructure bill is going to help our downtown so people can actually access our crown jewels. That's why the surplus that is at the state, we're going to go after it, and then people can say, gee, when there's a decision between Newburyport and Salem in the shoulder seasons, they'll come to Gloucester. We're losing that in the shoulder season. I want to win it back and put Gloucester back on the map as an A1 tourist community. And you got to have access to the beaches that are safe. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes?
Thank you. I didn't get to speak on the opera money. We received, you're right, good homework, $23 million, which is rare because we are not one of those gateway cities. It's supposed to go population. I'm lucky that we received a little bit more from the state. And so we're very fortunate on that. So total will be 23 million. We don't have that yet. It's in a process, and it comes with guidelines what you can and cannot do. I'm holding off and being frugal again because we all talked about the sewer treatment plant and the CSO project. You can't do a new sewer treatment plant. That's not in the OPI money. That's a lot of things aren't, but it changes. But what the other mayors are now fighting about is the CSO projects they haven't done. We completed ours. And so I'm in the argument saying, well, you know what, because we comply all the time and we're always ahead of the game, then why are we being punished? I should be able to use some of that to actually decrease our water bill for the first time. So it goes spread out. Because when you do a new water treatment plant, and if we don't go after fundings, which we are, and we're in the works right now with Seth Moulton's office, Congressman Moulton's office, to get funding, that's how we're going to be doing a lot of these projects, are grants that are coming in that has never came in the city of Gloucester. So you can't use it. $80 million is probably at the, maybe a little bit more, because that $80 million was always, everyone keeps saying $80 million, I've been hearing it for 20 years. If we change the site, which you can, be over $380 million. So we're working on the water treatment plant, we're working on the roads, the infrastructure underground, we're working on that. Can't be used with OPI. Repairing roads, Chapter 70 has come in, that's only for public roads. So we're working on all infrastructure. It's difficult to understand, and I'm gonna put more out there because I know I'm not allowed to, but I'd like to see the OPI money used what it's dedicated, because as everyone said, it's one-time money. I don't want to set up a program, then we're going to have to use the budget and then take away from another department. As far as, ventilations in the schools, we're doing great on that one. St. Anne's has an open house today, take a tour. It's amazing what's happening in the schools, so thank you.
Would anyone else?
I'd like to follow up.
Is anyone else before you speak again?
I'd like to follow up.
All right.
I'd like to follow up on the roads here. If we enforced the boulevard the way it should be enforced, if we enforced along Nautilus Road, we would have more money for roads. If we went to advanced ticketing or a reservation system at Wingersheek Beach and at Good Harbor, we would have more revenue, and that revenue could be spent on roads, and the residents' life would be better. The streets would be unclogged. It's a win-win. Cranes Beach, on their website, I read it yesterday, said that the advanced ticketing has reduced frustration among visitors and added efficiency and revenue. We can do it here, and we should do it, and you're going to vote for me, and it's going to be a mandate.
Any comments? I'm going to go, all right, all right.
Since that's not OPI money, and you can't use any of that on OPI money, we are looking at an advanced system. It's going to be in place by next fall. As you know, there's a lot of things that, if you try to get any pot of material, I have people who are looking for stoves, and it's taken 6 months, couches, the same thing. Just because your city doesn't mean it's going to come farther. Cranes Beach, everyone keeps mentioning Cranes Beach, that's great, but it's also a trust. It's not a public beach, it's in a trust. The money they have, we would be able to sustain all the roads, what they have. And it's, their parking is, and I've checked and worked with everyone of north of Boston, all the beaches, we try to coordinate, all us who have, from Cape Ann to Cape Cod, try to coordinate what we're gonna do so we don't have the overflow. When you do, like Cranes Beach, it's time slotted. So if I'm a mother who gets out at 12 o'clock and I wanna go to the beach, there's no more time slot, I can't go to the beach. So be careful what you wish for, and be careful what you do. We are working together, we have committee, we have people who are looking at that, and we're doing a process. Next fall, you're gonna have a process for non-residents, be able to get their stickers online, we'll be able to get ours, but to be able to do things. Traffic is going to be traffic. We are a community who does have tourism, May to September. We've been at there with police now, the police come up with a new program, and I'll talk about that after because this is OPI money, but you can't use OPI money for some things. It's designated what you can use.
I disagree with the traffic is not just traffic. We know that 5,000 cars are coming to Gloucester at 8 in the morning, and the recipe has been laid out from generation to generation. 80+ degrees, a Saturday, a Sunday, they're coming. A reservation system, the folks, the non-residents, they can pick a time slot,
Okay,
10
I'm
o'clock or
gonna
12 o'clock.
Cut this off and go on to the next question, which is on housing, and the first speaker will be Francisco Scafani, followed by John Harvey. Where do you stand on maintaining affordable housing under the pressure from rising real estate prices and scarcity? How would you ensure that people who grew up in Gloucester will be able to stay here? Mr. Scafani.
You know, we would all like to live here. As a matter of fact, we do. And a lot of people extra would like to live here. And I've gone through the housing projects, and the majority of them are from other countries. They didn't, I think it'd probably be discriminatory if you said you were going to build housing just for a certain type of individual. So, I mean, that would have to go through many committees, and many people would have to decide on it. And, you know, I'll just, I think that there's a lot of people here that, you know, everybody wants to be here, and that's why it's clogged. There's obviously too much traffic, too many people walking around. People are pushing this tourism thing. It's not the great thing. I don't think tourism is that great. Thank you.
Could you
Mr.
repeat
Harvey?
that question one more time, just so I get the nuance?
Where do you stand on maintaining affordable housing under the pressure from rising real estate prices and scarcity? How would you ensure that people who grew up in Gloucester will be able to stay here?
This is a really tough question. I mean, first of all, as far as affordable housing goes, Gloucester Housing Authority handles, I think, almost 1,350 units between Section 8, senior housing, and the parks. That's a population of about 5,000 people. It's like 17 or 18% of our population in total. That's not bad for that level of assistance. The problem is more now. It's people that they're capable of housing themselves, but the market is so strong right now that it's impossible for a normal person to buy a home in this city. The only thing I think you can possibly do with that is come up with grant money and sell, like, small condos. Other cities have done that. But it's a tough sell. It's a hard thing to come up with.
Now we're going to hear from Brian Pollard, followed by Robert Russell.
As you mentioned in my introduction, I have worked with Action Inc., which currently, is in the process of just completing the 30-unit affordable housing complex downtown. And I also work with the Gloucester Housing Authority as well. I've worked with both of them for the last 6 or 7 years. Together, we've helped provide affordable housing. I think the problem is that there isn't sufficient affordable housing. The government would like to see 10% of our housing in the city to be affordable. We're currently approximately at 8%. We're under that mark. And so I think the most important thing to do is to support as much as we can the Gloucester Housing Authority and Action to try to provide as much affordable housing as possible. Thank you.
Mr. Russell?
Affordable housing is a very difficult topic. I know firsthand from being a real estate agent how difficult it is to acquire a house, a condominium in Gloucester. But we can do better, and one of the things we have to do is look outside the box. It is not just simply building 6 units in a brick building. That's about $300,000 of construction costs. Some communities have thought outside the box, tiny house communities, or I went down to, it was not an affordable housing, but I went down to Falmouth to see a camp of Aerostreams. Aerostreams were $90,000 each. It was a tourism spot, but maybe Gloucester can think outside the box and put in some tiny houses or something else. This is a tough issue. If it was easy, it would be solved.
Now we're going to hear from Mayor Romeo II and followed by Greg Verga.
It's a very hard subject. Affordable housing, you first of all define affordable housing. Gloucester Housing Authority is great. I've worked with them for years, but it's not on the affordable housing list. It's run by the state and federal government. Section 8 is not considered affordable housing. Affordable housing, workforce houses, it depends. Cameron's is a true affordable housing project. When you build houses, and we're working on that with our planning, and we just had a great meeting about a month ago, is now to change the zoning. And that's really important because if you walk around the city of Gloucester, it says 30 seconds, we had small houses, but we got different kinds. It's zoning, and you have to work with the government because if it wasn't for my administration, Cameron's would have not been. Because 3 strikes, you're out. They have to go through grants. Grants are limited. You can only go so many times and reapply. We have the Gloucester Housing Trust, what we need to enforce. We need to bring the money in from the people who want to build so we can actually build real affordable housing. The affordable housings that you're looking at, let's say, I'm gonna not throw anything, but let's just say the old Fuller site. That's not affordable housing because it didn't take money from the state. It goes 80% high.
Mr. Verga?
I think one thing we all are in agreement on is it's a tough subject. There's no magic answer. I mean, to afford a house in Gloucester, what I've read recently is you need to have an income, the median income needs to be $85,000. Gloucester's is about $65,000. So right there we see a problem. And being a realtor as well, I listed a house in my old neighborhood for over $500,000, which was unheard of a few years ago. It's supply and demand though. Very few houses go on the market, so therefore the prices go up. You got 10 to 15 buyers for every house. The other thing is for rentals, a lot of people are investing in Airbnbs and things like that. So we don't have a lot of year-round rentals because people are making a killing doing short-term rentals. So one thing I'd like to see is the city look into the possibility of doing more fees for that or some regulations limiting the amount of short-term rentals. But we have to think, to Rob's point, outside the box because inside the box ain't working.
Does anyone want to add
Yes.
anything on
For
affordable
example,
housing?
we have Santander Bank, very large, downtown, commercial properties vacant right now. That's something that the city of Gloucester, under my leadership, we can look at in terms of changing the zoning, and that maybe could be something that we could start in for some affordable housing units. We have to look every single place in this city to see if we can, if we can solve this problem. And the state hasn't been able to solve it. Charlie Baker mentioned a few months ago about zoning and not being that snob zoning, and I think Gloucester can get there.
Anyone else?
I'd like to address that.
Yes.
Zoning issues come from committees, which comes from your city council. It doesn't come from the mayor's office. You cannot change zoning. You cannot change the charter. You cannot change anything. Administration for mayor is administration. The governance is your city council. You need to work with your ward councilors and figure out. Now, years ago, and Greg was there also, we changed certain zonings, and I have to say, past councilors worked so hard, Ward 5. We have 5 wards. Each ward has 2 precincts. Just because one of the precincts might not be able to have something, the other one might. Work with your ward councilors, people. Change some of the zonings. Do not holler at my administration or anyone else here who may be administration and say, look what you did. It's your zoning. And in my opinion is just because you can doesn't mean you should. I don't like what's happening in a lot of the parts of Gloucester. Shouldn't have no changes. But I cannot stop it and I cannot change it. The people can change it by talking to their ward councilors and make sure you know what you want the little houses kept in the little neighborhoods. Because that's how it's gonna happen. As far as affordable housing, the affordable housing workforce, that has to be changed from the state. I don't think it's fair that we put that 10% and we put that level down. We changed that because if you built more than 10 houses, one had to be affordable. Brought it down to 6. Because you know what? What is affordable? So you build 10 condos and it's $1 million each. The next one, oh, it's affordable, is $800,000 for whom? And the medium income level has gone up to almost $100,000. You still can't afford to live here. And my children can't afford. So it's not me personally, because the fact is, I'm one person, administration's one person. It's your zoning we have to go by. So if who you vote for, please look at your city councilors, look at your ward councilors, and please work on zonings with everyone. We've done that with the planning board. Some of them have gone on the meetings. Some of the architects have come on, and some of the contractors. And they are working with it, and that's how you can do. Talk to a planning and development, talk to it, and you know what? You've been in Zoom for a year and a half. Go on a Zoom meeting.
All right, someone else? Yes,
I'd like
Mr.
to make a
Pollard.
comment. 2 comments. First of all, as a businessman and a real estate investor, you have to be wary about when you mention comments like, we can take the old Sovereign Bank building, which is listed for sale for $3 million right now, when we just sold a piece of land, the Fuller School, for half that amount of money, we had mentioned that you can't change zoning, but the Halyard just constructed 300 residential units. So obviously the zoning was available there. The city owned that property. The city could have worked with the state to own those, all 300 affordable units, not necessarily 300, but they themselves could have potentially provided affordable housing, owned that building, and created revenue for the city. And I think that's a shame.
Mr. Verga, and then we'll go on to the next question.
Just a quick correction for Brian. The sale of Fuller was not half of that $3 million. It was $4 million. So it was actually $1 million more than that asking price.
But we currently, we don't own the building, but we did own the building.
Oh, I agree with you there. But I'm just correcting the price. But it also, yes, the city council does create the ordinances, approve the ordinances, but a mayor and the mayor's administration can't propose ordinances. So it isn't just, it's their problem, they'll deal with it, and talk to your councilors. It's a partnership, and it's not unusual for an administration to present something for review to the city council. And that is what I would do, and build a partnership with all the members of the city council in the year 2022.
I want to jump in
No,
here
I'm going to go on.
about the
You've
zoning
spoken
board of
twice.
appeals.
You've spoken twice, and I'm going to.
The zoning board of appeals,
All
the
right.
Santander Bank, the commercial bank, could go through with the city's endorsement of affordable units through the zoning board of appeals. So it's, you've got zoning and ordinances, and then you've got this mechanism arm called the zoning board of appeals. So the possibility, again, this city needs to do what can we do, not what can't we do. We have to think outside the box and try to solve some of these difficult problems.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well,
once more.
Thank you, because the fact is, I've been on a city council, and there's not mayors who bring proposals, it's changing. You bring proposal for a project, and it's up to the city council. I'm not gonna argue what the rules and regulations are. I'm not gonna go back and forth on that one, that's not what we're here. We're here about how do we make it affordable. We had councilors try to bring things in, we also got grants, and for homeowners to actually make their houses affordable from other councilors from the past. People didn't take that because you have to put a certain criteria. For 15 years, you can't raise your rent. Well, I'm sorry, but if you look at the rent that is now, there's no rent control and there's so many problems. As far as the project, as far as Haylett, that could have been stopped, and I asked the city council, and we asked, the hardship, the 40 extra units they had to build for affordable, we said give us the money so we can build and invest in our properties. We're not good landlords, and I'm gonna be honest, in the 30 years that we've had, in the past 30 years I'm gonna look at, because I've been in office for 20. The fact is that we have buildings, we do buildings. To be landlords, that's not us. We work with partnership like Action. We're working on another partnership with the YMCA to make the one on Middle Street a real affordable housing for elderly. Because guess what? We need that. In order for you to have housing, our elderly needs to sell their homes. In order to sell their homes, and they want to sell it to their family, is they need a place to go to. And that's what you want. You want to be able to generation homes. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go on to the next question. What are your thoughts on a blue economy, jobs that the sea can provide? And how do you strike a balance between the competing interests of fishermen, development, wildlife preservation, and recreation? The first speaker will be Robert Russell, followed by Mayor Romeo Thacon. Mr. Russell.
Could you please repeat the question?
What are your thoughts on a blue economy, jobs that the sea can provide? And how do you strike a balance between the competing interests of fishermen, development, wildlife preservation, and recreation?
Gloucester has struggled with a blue economy for many, many years. Unfortunately, there is two competing forces here in the city, and we need to be unified. We need to realize that downtown and the harbor and the fisheries can coexist. And one of the things that we need to get our hands on is that the IC lot, it's right on the harbor. How is that going to fit into our long-term goals? It's a crown jewel. The harbor is a crown jewel. Fishermen have told me that in Salem, where they tried to work together and put in some condominiums on the waterfront, it did not work. When the lobstermen and fishermen started their boats up, immediately the condominium owners started to complain. We don't want to see that in Gloucester. We need to protect the heritage that we have in the harbor, and we also need to invest in working with downtown so we can coexist. And one of the things I'm looking at is how can the boulevard, the harbor, all connect so tourism can come, our economy can grow, and the fishermen will have a preservation on their docks and the ability for us to maintain our great, great heritage. There has been talk about following some things that are done overseas in terms of fisheries in Iceland and in Norway. Maybe we'll look into that and bring it to Gloucester.
And Mayor.
Well, this is really difficult for me because I hate when they say, you know, fishermen don't want this, so how do they coexist? We've been coexisting for years. We're 400 years old. Tourists come, you don't even have to put out a bulletin board. What they want to see is a working waterfront. What we need is a working waterfront, and we're working on that because we do have one. We have changes. People are used to seeing 700 vessels out there and people on their decks of their boats or on the State Fish Bar or anywhere else mending nets. Things change. You can ornaments. There's so many things that are changing. If you see, I have GMGI, working waterfront. Tourist, tied up right next to each other. Blue economy, Gorton's, Ocean Crest, more's coming. just to see what we did just during COVID to sustain it, to keep it alive. To keep it alive, after 20 years, we went to the seafood show. And Gloucester Fresh, the logo that we're doing, I set up a fisheries commission that we had years ago that was stopped. We have a director, a paid director, part-time, who's also a fishing owner, also a fishing person. And the fact is that we are working on the waterfront. We're working to make sure that the business owners who own their property, private properties, can sustain because of the climate change and the coastal resilience and the tide. You know what? We need to help them. We're getting grants. We're looking at, finally, I just had a wonderful, wonderful Wednesday morning, mass development. My old friend Dan Rivera came down. That's what you call. I said, we don't want to redevelop Rocky Neck. We want to revitalize it. They purchased great property there. I had my harbor master, because he knows that side, we know that side. We worked what we can do, Chapter 90, DPA, all of these things that are on the waterfront, what you can, marine industrial, what you can and cannot do. And what they're going to do is going to be great. We have 2 cultural districts. My main concern right now is to change maybe some of the zoning that they tried because they wanted on Main Street. Is because before, when Palazzolo's was being sold, artists wanted to buy that. Live workforce houses for artists.
Next, we're going to hear from John Harvey and then Greg Verga.
I know commercial fishing. I did it for 12 years. And there's a popular perception in this city, that the fishing industry is dead, and it couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, I know what it feels like to have the government tell you there's no fish when you're only going out and making 1 set night and loading the boat. In spite of National Marine Fisheries unceasing efforts to gut our industry, earnings have climbed slowly, but every year. Fish processing, and that infrastructure, they're still our largest employer in the city, as far as I know. The mayor's office is a small soapbox to stand on. But Gloucester has a presence in the state and the country far beyond our size, and we can use that little soapbox to pressure Congress and the media for more intelligent regulation. We can also make efforts to attract more boats back to Gloucester, and I don't mean for the little crowded inshore fisheries and lobster, and I'm talking about bigger offshore boats. We need to also realize that a working waterfront may have to include more than just fishing, aquaculture.
Mr. Verga?
Sure. So obviously Gloucester's America's oldest fishing port, and my grandparents came here from Sicily to fish. You know, it's in all of our blood, and it's something that's not going away. It is not dead. It's different than what it once was, and we've adapted over the years. But as Fathia mentioned, the blue economy is not just fishing boats. Lobstering is probably even a bigger part of the economy these days. My son-in-law's a commercial lobsterman. But the Gloucester genomics, the more high-tech end of the blue economy is still here for us. So Gloucester should be looking to the future with other industries that relate to the blue economy, other than fishing, but also having the backs of the fishermen in the industry, because it is the oldest fishing port and is going to stay that way for centuries to come.
Next, Mr. Scafani, followed by Mr. Pollard.
If you were to make the fatal mistake of rezoning the Gloucester fishing industry's infrastructure, that infrastructure would just disappear and it would never, ever be replaced. Nobody's going to want to build a smelly fish plant over owning a beautiful condo overlooking the harbor. As far as fishing, I really think the future is fish farms or trying to build, grow marine animals, wherever. I always looked at a female lobster has 30,000 little babies under her. I mean, that's 30,000 lobsters. Somebody told me they're cannibalistic and they eat each other. But, I mean, if you could separate them, 30,000 of them from birth, I'm pretty sure you could feed the world with lobster. But anyway, I used to work at the fish auction, and I used to get up 2 o'clock in the morning to be able to haul fish. And I'll tell you, I would never go back to doing that again. So, I mean, when you see these additional demands being put on fishermen.
Mr. Pollard?
So a lot of people are unaware, but I actually do have my commercial fishing license. I fish part-time for the love of it. I love to fish. I sell my striped bass to Ocean Crest. I think it's extremely important that we not only support the fishermen, but the entire fishing community. You know, like I had mentioned before, in Harbor Cove, the city owns some dockage, which I would like to repeat that I'd love to, you know, work with the city and state to add additional dockage, because currently there is a wait at the State Fish Pier for the fishermen to dock there. Thank you.
Does anyone want to add something?
I would. I didn't get to mention about the marine life and what's going on. You know, I talked to Ocean Alliance, I talked to GMGI and upstairs Gifford that opened up to do biotech and what's happening between the DNA. There's a misconception that fishermen are not environmentalists and they don't care about the ocean. And we're only there, or they're only there good to fight, you know, things that are happening. It's not true. We want to sit at the table. We want to be at the table, and we've tried. We have the science, and we want to be there. You know, we tried going to the state. We tried doing everything. We've been in Washington. We've done the protests. We've done everything. We've been in each amendment. We went from amendments to blocks to this to that. And the federal government, states, you know what, National Marine Fisheries, anything you can think of, we've done. You know, we all want to have whale watching. That's part of our whole heritage here also. It's not the fact that you don't want the lobstermen to use that twine, it's how do you interact to them? Who's gonna keep paying you? Add things without pointing at the table so they can say, can we do it in steps? Can we do that? And what kind of twine? Because you know what, our lobstermen here talk to the whales. They're out there. I've been on the old CBs, not cell phones, when I had a commercial vessel and you'd hear them. They're the ones who say, stop your trawls, stop your things, nobody move until they finish because they understand. Work with them. They are environmentalists. They're there in your winters, your summers. They're there through your perfect storms, no pun intending. But the fact is, put them at the table. They'll give you the best technology. The misconception is that all fishermen have no education. We've got Harvard grads on those boats, captains and owners of the boats. Their livelihoods. When you talk about factory trawlers versus your small business trawlers, that's their business, that's their family, that's their heritage. So the misconception, or we don't like tourists, that's not true. Tourists, I was at the Beauport Hotel, looked over and asked everyone, why aren't you looking at that side? Everyone has an ocean, but not everyone has a working waterfront.
Anyone else want
Yes.
to comment?
I
Mr.
just want to
Pollard.
make an additional comment, that I agree with Safathia, that there's a misconception that commercial fishermen aren't environmentalists, but I agree with her that I think that they obviously want to support a sustainable fishing industry. And one of the points I want to make, and a lot of people do not know, is that, just for example, if a commercial fisherman has a license to, hypothetically, let's say they're going to drag for 8,000 pounds of haddock, and they pull up cod in that fishing net, well, guess what? They can't take that fish in. There potentially could be thousands of pounds of dead cod dumped back in the ocean because they're not allowed. The government doesn't allow them to bring it in, and I think that's a shame. And it really upsets the fishermen for doing that. And it should upset the community, the state, and the federal government.
All right, next question. The City of Gloucester has 23 departments and numerous appointed boards and commissions. How should the mayor interact with these? And what would you do as mayor to make them all work together more effectively? First speaker will be Greg Verga, followed by Francisco Scafani. Mr. Verga.
Well, the first thing is we should be having worldwide searches when there are job openings to find the best, most qualified people for any position. Then they should be empowered to do the job that they're charged to do. The mayor holds regular meetings with the staff, but it should be done in a respectful fashion, and we should not be having, hopefully in the future, complaints from our employees. We're all in this together, as we say. It's a team effort, and a mayor cannot be an expert in every field. That's why you bring these people in. And they're supposed to advise you. In the end, it's up to the mayor to make the decisions, but the staff that they have under them, the department heads, are the ones who are seeking the ideas and then presenting the ideas. So it's got to be give and take, and these employees are very important to us. They're the backbone of our city, the staff that's going to hopefully remain after there's a change in the administration. So it's being respectful, being courteous, respecting their input, and working together as a team. It sounds so simple as a concept, but it appears that may not have been the way it's been over the past several months. So my job would be to bring back a sense of peace and harmony and mutual respect to City Hall.
Mr. Scafani?
As the new next mayor of Gloucester, my door will always be open to any department head or any civil employee or civil servant that wants to talk about whatever issue they want to talk about.
So now we'll hear from Mayor Safadio Romeo II, followed by John Harvey.
Thank you. First of all, let's talk about respect. My team and my boards and commissions are respectful. We are respectful. We work. As far as being experts and everything, it was a COVID. Nobody got furloughed, nobody got fired, and nobody got laid off. People took time off. We had demands. Mayor's office gets blamed. I was on the call 24/7. 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, constantly. Now we set up boards and commissions that we do have managers. Our department heads are on boards and commissions, and we separated what would be best for them, so we know. Because boards and commissions are volunteers. And volunteers at certain meetings, certain city council were dragged through, and nobody stopped them during comments, or allowed to be brutalized, okay? And, well, yes. Can we make changes? Absolutely. Have we? Absolutely. Respect? I have 100% respect for every single person in the city of Gloucester.
Mr. Harvey? City of Gloucester has 23 departments and numerous appointed boards and commissions. How should the mayor interact with these, and what would you do as mayor to make them work together more effectively?
It all comes down to communication. I mean, and especially in this day and age with the internet and with Zoom, I don't think there's any excuse for the city to not have one hand not knowing what the other one's doing or duplicating efforts. And I'm going to be that fast.
Now we'll hear from Mr. Pollard, followed by Mr. Russell.
Thank you. Well, you know, I think the mayor is in a leadership role, but you know, it's very important for someone in a leadership role to work with all the departments and to actually manage on a macro level. Because I believe that when you manage on a micro level, city employees, they don't feel like they can do their job and be productive within the city. So I think that's extremely important. You know, I grew up with Mike Hale, the DBW director. I'm very good friends with him. The TJ Shimataro, the harbor master, I'm very good friends with him. As a real estate agent, real estate investor, I work with Bill Sanborn all the time. The health department, a lot of the departments within the city. You know, as a loan officer, I've also worked with many city employees on their personal finances, and so I know I can work together as a team with this wonderful group of the City of Gloucester employees.
And Mr. Russell.
My management style was shown to the citizens of Gloucester by having this debate tonight. I found out that we weren't scheduled for a debate before the primary. I did two things. One is I reached out to the League of Women Voters, and I reached out to Jamie O'Hara, city councilor. Jamie said he'd work on it on his end, which he did. The Magnolia Library is going to have a debate next week. And we're here today because that winning collaboration worked. I'll give you an example about winning collaboration. If the fire chief wants a new truck, he's got to argue vigorously for that equipment, why we need it, how important it is for safety. At the same time, the mayor's going to say, listen, if we give you that truck, we're going to be taking away money from something else. So his department has got to understand what the police department needs and what the school department needs, and weave it together to form our budget. Thank you.
Mr. Verger, you would like to add something?
Yeah, I didn't address the last part of your question about the boards and commissions. They too, the appointments to the boards and commissions will be people who are qualified for those. And as I said, they're all charged to do certain things as advisory boards to the mayor or to the city as a whole. And we need to let them do their job and then listen to their advice. Sometimes it might be, thank you for advice, I don't agree with you. But in the end, I'll do what's best for the city by populating those boards and commissions with the best people, and then following their advice as it fits to make our city move forward.
Thank you. Well, boards and commissions, we've been trying to change a lot of them. Younger generations coming forward, but some boards and commissions, you have to do it when the time expires. You can't just fire someone who volunteered and say, well, I'm gonna put someone else. You do it accordingly. When you do, and someone's there and you try to put it diverse, we have criterias in boards and commissions too. We have a lot of boards and commissions that really are like government, your zoning, your planning. So it has a criteria, your waterways board for the water. You know what? And little digs have been thrown this way. That's okay, because I was taught something. I was in the city government for 20 years. School committee side now, and city side. 1,200 employees. 1,200 employees. I think in 20 years of government, we've had our ups and downs. There are boards who's made complaints against this one or that one. This year it's just a little bit totally different because of COVID. Like I said, you had staff that left and went to other states when you're not supposed to be going out of the state. You had employees that did things, but that's okay because it was COVID. And that's the whole thing. You have to take a pandemic, and you have to be. And I learned something. I learned that, your friends want to be your employees want to be your friends. You can't do that when it's time to be a mayor, and it's difficult. We had difficult situations. Money, trucks, we're getting that. Grants, we're getting that. We had difficult situations. We had clusters. You had minorities. You had so many things that you needed to do. You learn from those. You move forward. I'm moving forward. I have right here Harbor Master's Plan, right here with the community development, my HR, Board of Health. We're working. We have Delta. We're working together, people. Feel safe.
Okay.
I think that the Zoning Board of Appeals needs to be independent body, and it needs to be representative of folks from Plum Cove, Magnolia, Wingersheek, and East Gloucester. And a strong Zoning Board of Appeals can survive a pandemic. It is a backbone of a community, and it needs to be independent, and it needs to be on the front of our website so people in Magnolia know there's a 40-unit development coming on Washington Street. That's weaving the citizens together, and it will be on the front of the website under my administration.
Okay, I'm going to go on. We have just enough time to squeeze in one of my favorite questions, but you're each going to get only 1 minute. And this is, what question did you want to answer that I didn't ask? Why is that question important? And you have 1 minute to say what the question would be, why it's important, and what you do about it. The first speaker is Mr. Russell, followed by Safaria Romeo-Tekin.
Excuse me, June, I did not hear the question.
You undoubtedly prepared for the debate, and you may have spent hours thinking about a school issue or potholes or something. So what is the question you really wanted to talk about tonight that I didn't ask yet? You each get to choose a question and answer it yourself in 1 minute. Mr. Russell.
The question that I wanted asked tonight was why I'm such a proponent of advanced ticketing in a reservation system for the beachgoers, the non-residents. And the answer is this: it's two benefits. It benefits the non-residents who come to the beach. They now can come here at 1 o'clock on a Saturday. Imagine having 4 kids, loading a car up and coming here at 1 o'clock. You might even stop in at Virgilio's now that you have time to get lunch. Wonderful. For us, we get to go to synagogue or church on a Saturday or Sunday. And more importantly, the folks in Wingersheek and the folks in East Gloucester, you might even get that ambulance that you so desperately need. So it's a win-win situation and more revenue by advanced ticketing, because we can also offer premium pricing. Gloucester can do it, and I'm going to get it done, and I need your vote.
Safaria, what did you want to ask me to ask?
It's kind of difficult. There's a lot of things. And first of all, I want to thank everyone. I know I have a minute, but thank you for the newcomers who, putting yourself out there. Greg and I have a little bit more advantage because we've been in the system of either city councilor or mayor. I don't have a question. There's a lot of questions that are good, and in 1 minute is not going to sustain it. What's going to sustain is my heart. I'm so distraught. I need to bring the community together. Gloucester used to be an island where we all used to be together. And whether what you believe in, a coastal or a mask or vaccines or presidents, whatever, we never let that stop us. COVID scared a lot of us. Because I asked, why did you get the vaccine and you won't get the third one of the booster? I was afraid I was going to die. That is like, wow. So now we know more, and now we have more science, and now, but let's not argue against who's right. You're a Republican, you're a Democrat, you're a lefty, you're a righty, I'm a century, I'm in the middle, I'm human. Let's become human again.
Mr. Pollard, followed by Mr. Verga.
Thank you. So one question that not necessarily did I prepare for, but that I'm passionate about and that we didn't speak about today was education. The entire budget for the city of Gloucester, depending on what numbers you look at, could be anywhere from 110 million a year to 130 million. Well, the school budget is approximately $40 million, which is a significant portion of the budget. And I don't have any criticisms of the school system, but I see opportunity. So the city of Gloucester last year took in $250,000 from children that school choiced into the city. Isn't a lot. The city of Gloucester paid out over $2 million for approximately 270 students that school choice out of the city. Now, I see an opportunity because if we can retain just 2 students, that could be an additional teacher's salary. And I think that that's extremely important to focus. Look at your card. So I would love to talk more. Obviously, my time's cut, but primarily and most importantly, education is extremely important to me. Thank you.
Mr. Verga.
Mine would be about road repairs. When I was a ward counselor, God, I don't know, 12 years ago, the same thing was being asked of me then that my conversations with current ward counselors, that they're being asked. It's about what people see out their window, the potholes, the things like that. And then this public versus private road issue. We've got this discrepancy. So what I would like to see happen, for the road repairs, is the DPW publish a list of the road repairs over the next 3 years. Try to take the perception of politics out of it, that these are the roads that are being repaired over the, between now and 2024, and if there's a reason why one comes off the list, there's an explanation. And then we have to finally get to the bottom of what we're gonna do about the private roads. It's not as easy as we'll take your road, but we started the process when I was on the city council 6 years ago. A lot of roads private in the outskirts, also a few downtown Gloucester, and they pay their taxes too. So we need to come to a resolution about how we can make things more equitable.
Mr. Scafani, followed by Mr. Harvey.
I was disappointed that expectant mothers' rights were just totally ignored for the past 4 separate decades. Women have been given birth on the side of 128. The first child born on the side of 128 in the breakdown lane because the Babson maternity ward had been removed. That child died. There's been hundreds of women giving birth on the side of that highway. And if you're going to be planning for the future, countless future generations.
Mr. Harvey.
Yeah, what I kind of thought we were going to be talking about, the blue economy actually was really what I was hoping for, so thank you. But one thing we didn't touch on was water treatment, water capacity versus development. In the current city budget, it talks about, we have water treatment capacity currently of 5 million gallons a day, and supposedly we're using 4, so we're at 80% on any given day. That seemed like, high but doable, but it made me wonder how much variation there was. So I talked to people at Veolia, and what they told me was, yeah, in the wintertime, it is 3 to 4 million gallons a day. In the summertime, they're pushing everything they possibly can into the system now. City budget also says that we need to grow our tax base with development. If we're at 100% of water capacity, treatment capacity right now, what's going to happen when we add another 200 units, 300 units, 500 residential units to this city? Your average home price right now is $625,000. That's $7,800 in taxes a year. To raise another $1 million for the city is going to be 128 residential homes. Where are you going to put them?
Thank you. On September 14th, the voters are going to decide which two of you will be in the final election. Please help them in your final 2-minute statements by stressing the major differences you see between yourself and your opponents. The first one will be Mr. Pollard, followed by Mr. Harvey.
Thank you. So I'm actually going to take this time to elaborate more on the educational system. A lot of people aren't aware that that the city of Gloucester does have a vocational school. Obviously, a lot of students from the city attend the Essex Agricultural Vocational School, but Gloucester does have a vocational school as well. Machine tech, carpentry, electrical, automotive repair. So in regards to, potentially retaining some of this money that we pay out in school choice, I see an opportunity to, one, provide a vocational service to the students in Gloucester and potentially even add on more vocations. For example, plumbing. I have a friend, his son was attending Essex Agricultural, could not get into the plumbing program, and he's a plumber. So if we could provide opportunity for these children, maybe additional vocational schools, I think it'd be extremely important to provide the service, but it would also potentially generate revenue for the city to even have more available funds for the school system. Secondly, it's easy to speak about fiscal responsibility, but I am a businessman. That is going to be my focus with the city and fiscal conservatism. I think actions speak louder than words. It's easy for me to tell you that I'm going to preach fiscal conservativity, but what I am going to guarantee to the city is that I plan on donating back 20% of my projected annual salary, if I'm elected, back into the city budget, because I'm running for mayor because of my love for the city and not for the salary. And so I think it's extremely important that I show that I'm going to give back 20% or $20,000 of my salary each year back to the city budget to make sure that we focus on fiscal conservativity. Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Harvey?
Could you repeat the question one more time?
This is your final statement.
Oh,
You
this is
have
the
2
closing
minutes, and it is always a good idea to stress the differences between yourself and other candidates.
Here we go. We cannot really ignore that this election, or at least the size of the candidate field, is a referendum on the behavior and the character of our current mayor. Leadership requires listening to and respecting your people, and it also requires taking an unpopular and risky stance for what you believe is right. I'm the only one here to stand up, and I'm going to say this out loud, and I think you can gauge who here has the currents of their convictions. The accusations in the newspapers are just the tip of the iceberg. Few people I've spoke to while campaigning didn't have one or more stories of crude or unacceptable behavior from this mayor. I'm calling on the mayor today to release the unredacted report of her misconduct. She has claimed that she's protecting those who she abused from embarrassment, when in fact the only person she's protecting is herself. Please release the full report. The voters have a right to see it.
All right, Mr. Scafani, followed by no, I'm sorry. You can only in your own 2-minute closing. Mr. Scafani is next. We're almost out of time, and then you're after Mr. Scafani.
I will lead the fight to retake our Cable Memorial Community Hospital by eminent domain. As your new next mayor, I shall demand the ultimate return of our Babson Maternity Ward to our Addison Gilbert Community Hospital. The first child born on Route 128 South in the breakdown lane died after 72 hours later, which makes this case a homicide. On Election Day, vote for me. The life you save may be your very own, or the life you save may be someone you love, or better yet, maybe the life you save may be just a total stranger's life. I have to make these decisions to ensure the public's safety and adequate available emergency medical services are ensured for countless future generations to follow. If you wish to write me, mail it to elect Francisco A. Scafani, Post Office Box 1662. That was Post Office Box 1662. You know when I walk through that door that I have to always remember little tiny itty-bitty things like right from wrong. As our mayor, I will ask the Army Corps of Engineers to build a desaltation plant on this island to ensure our fresh drinking water capacity. Remember those who have gone before us. I'd also would like to thank the League of Women Voters, congratulate them on their 101 year anniversary of fighting for and giving the right to vote to women. Thank you.
Mayor Safaria.
Well, you know what? I'm going to discuss what we've done as a community. I'm going to discuss, I've been into the Smithsonian's, to the museums, to the United Nations, to the State House, to the White House, in 30 years of being an advocate for this city. COVID came and it hit us all differently. And I'm going to say, I want to thank those who complained. Out of 1,200 employees, 5, I want to thank you. It brought an opportunity for me to look at things of, you know what, everyone can change and everyone can make mistakes, and how you deal with them. And we're dealing with them and we're moving forward. We have a great team, we work together, we're moving together. We have a great relationship with the partnership of our state legislators, with Ann Margaret Ferranti, Senator Tarr, Congress, Senate, and our governor. That's what's really important, because everyone's going to go after more money, ARPA money, climate money. It's the partnership you have and what you believe and what you need to do. If you haven't volunteered, please do. Schools are very important. PTOs, thank you from the moms. But we also need ad hoc committees. We have things that are happening, things that also are coming forward that, you know what, that's going to need your help, expertise. Don't be afraid to come forward. And the fact is, yes, we have boards and commissions. Ask your boards and commissions. Ask a lot. I'm also working now with the Delta, and we're handling it because now we have more knowledge of this pandemic. So I'm asking for your vote and continue your support. And trust me, you've known me for 30 years. You know, things change. But I want to let you know we have so much more to do. I had a whole year and a half that we still were productive. We still end up being great with our budget, great financially, sustainability. And no, the budget doesn't say build houses. The budget doesn't say do these things. As far as the VOC, thank you for bringing that up, we work with the unions. Ann Margaret Ferranti, we're working with all the unions to come forward. We're working with our local VOC to make sure, blue collar, veterans, to put them to work. I know you're asking me to stop, but since I was targeted and couldn't answer him, I just want to say, you know what? Don't give up. Gloucester's not lost. Gloucester's not changed. Gloucester's moving forward, but we're moving forward together. And just look what's happening. The boulevard, everything.
Okay.
So yes, please join our staff, join our team. And I really do believe that, yes, you can hire outside, but we also have people from the inside that should be promoted too for working.
Okay. Mr. Russell, and then Mr. Verga.
This election is about your voice, plain and simple, restoring your voice to City Hall. The crown jewels of the city will be shined. We will be prepared for the 400th year celebration. This is done through rebuilding, restoring downtown. It is your heritage. You deserve a fantastic downtown. And that starts with a pilot pop-up shops program to fill the empty storefronts. Then we'll get the ball rolling. But your spirit, in the meantime, will be renewed. I need your vote to make changes. And this is about your voice, your identity, and your quality of life. Please vote for me, and people from Lanesville, Magnolia, East Gloucester, you'll have a voice at City Hall. I guarantee it. And I guarantee you'll have an independent zoning board of appeals. September 14th, get your voice back, and you will be thankful you did. Vote for me September 14th. Thank you.
Mr. Verga.
Thank you to everyone watching at home. Thank you to my fellow candidates. And thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting today. My name is Greg Verga, and I'm running to be your mayor for a more efficient, more transparent, and more collaborative city government. I bring 14 years of experience on the school committee and the city council, and I know how the city should operate. 14 years of experience taught me how to, the importance of listening and to always be fair and professional, and to build consensus to deliver results to our residents, and to put the people of Gloucester first in any decision. Our city hall, simply put, needs a reset. Because of problem creation, explanation, and litigation, the current administration lacks a vision. We need to refocus that wasted energy on the bread and butter issues that every resident expects and deserves. A clean city, safe sidewalks, roads that are maintained and repaired equitably throughout the city, a school system that's among the best performing in the state. And at the same time, we can set our sights on the long-term plans that reach far beyond our arms of reach. My wife Kelly is a nurse. My daughter Abby is a nurse. My son-in-law Steve is a commercial lobsterman. I saw the pandemic up close and personal. So between a pandemic, the schools, and the climate resiliency preparedness, just to name a few, our city is at a crossroads. So as we approach our 400th anniversary, we should be laying the groundwork for the next generation so that they too will be able to live in Gloucester and raise their families here. I'm running to help our schools, to make our economic development more fair and equitable, and to protect our beaches and improve our roads and sidewalks. Again, my name is Greg Verga, and I humbly ask for your vote on September 14th in the city's preliminary election, and together we can make things happen for our city. Thank you so much.
On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Cape Ann, I want to thank the Sawyer Free Library for providing this space and 1623 Studios for filming this debate to you, the voters. I want to thank the 6 candidates for mayor for participating, our 2 league timekeepers, and the members of the league who submitted questions. Please remember to vote in the preliminary election for mayor on September 14th and the general election for all city offices on November 2nd. Thank you.